A large-scale DNA sampling drive is underway to identify the victims of the airplane crash in Ahmedabad. Forensic teams are working very closely to identify the victims of the Air India plane crash, and DNA test results are expected within 72 hours. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the crash site in Ahmedabad today. The Indian Prime Minister also visited the hospital to meet with the lone survivor of the crash. So that is the Indian Prime Minister talking to this miracle man who managed to come out of this crash alive. A London-bound passenger jet crashed in Ahmedabad on Thursday, killing at least about 265 people on board and on the ground. One passenger managed to survive miraculously. I mean, imagine surviving and walking out of a plane crash on the feet. 40-year-old Vishwash Kumar is the sole survivor of this crash. He was seated on seat number 11A in the plane. The government has now opened a formal investigation into the cause of this catastrophic crash. The Air India CEO Campbell Wilson arrived at the plane crash site today. Now, India's Civil Aviation Authority has said that 2 pilots and 10 cabin crew members were amongst the 242 people on board. Now, Air India has said that there were 169 Indian passengers, 53 British, 7 Portuguese and a Canadian on board the flight that was bound for London's Gatwick Airport. That suggests that at least about 24 people have died with the jet ploughed into a medical staff hotel in a blazing fireball, and that the toll may actually rise further as more bodies are located. Now, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said that the scenes from the crash site were simply devastating, while the country's King Charles III has said that he was desperately shocked. Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, the lone survivor of the crash of a London-bound Air India flight in Ahmedabad, says that he simply does not know how he managed to get out of this plane crash alive. He recounts the moments of his miraculous survival. Take a listen.
मेरे नजरों के सब सामने हुआ था. मेरे खुद को भी बिलीव नहीं होता कि मैं कैसे उसमें से जिंदा बाहर निकला, क्योंकि थोड़ा टाइम लिए कि तो मेरे को लगा था कि मैं भी मरने वाला हूँ. लेकिन जब मेरी आँख खुल के मैं देखा ना, तो मुझे लगा मैं जिंदा हूँ. तो मैंने ट्राई किया, जब मेरी सीट थे वो मेरी बेल्ट निकाला, मैंने वो ट्राई किया जहाँ से निकल सकता वहाँ से, तो मैं निकल गया वहाँ से. मेरे सामने नजरों के सामने एयर होस्टल और दूसरे आंटी अंकल सभी उसमें मेस हो गए थे सभी. मैं जो साइड पे था ना, वो साइड हॉस्टल पे नहीं लैंड हुई थी. हॉस्टल के जो ग्राउंड फ्लोर है ना, जैसे नीचे वहाँ लैंड हुई थी. तो मुझे दूसरे के बारे में मेरे को पता नहीं, लेकिन मैं जहाँ लैंड हुआ था ना, वो नीचे की साइड थी. तो जब वहाँ थोड़ा पेस भी था प्लेन के जब बाहर, तो जब जैसे मेरा डोर टूटा ना सब, तो मैंने देखा ना जब सामने कि थोड़ा इधर पेस है, तो मैं ट्राई कर सकता हूँ निकलने के लिए. तो मैंने ट्राई किया निकलने के लिए, तो फिर मैं निकल गया उधर, क्योंकि अपोजिट साइड पे था ना वो बिल्डिंग का वो था ना दीवार, तो उधर से कोई शायद नहीं निकल सका होगा, क्योंकि उधर पूरा उधर ही क्रैश हुआ था. मैं जो जहाँ था वहाँ थोड़ा पेस था. फिर भी मेरे पता नहीं मैं कैसे बचा हूँ, क्योंकि मेरे नजर के सामने ही सब 2 एयर होस्टल अंकल आंटी सब उधर ही सब.
All right, so that is the personal testimony of this man, the miracle man who managed to walk out of a plane crash alive. He was on his feet as he walked away from the rubble and is now undergoing treatment for the injuries that he sustained. And our principal correspondent, Disha Shah, is joining us live from Ahmedabad. Disha, you've been tracking all the developments that are unfolding in the aftermath of this very tragic air crash that happened in Ahmedabad. Give us a sense of what's in fact unfolding there at the moment. How much further has the investigation gone into to ascertain the cause of this crash?
Well, absolutely. First, I want to show you where I am. I am right here at the civil hospital, which is known as Asia's biggest civil hospital. And right in front of me is the trauma center. This is the new trauma center that you can see. You can see the ambulances also that is continuously arriving. And here inside the trauma center, there are more than 60 survivors is what we are being told. They are getting the treatment. The 60 survivors are the resident doctors of the doctors' hostel where the plane crashed yesterday. And even the lone survivor of the plane crash is also getting the treatment right here at the trauma center. And outside you can see there are a few relatives also of the survivors who are standing at this point in time, and they are eagerly waiting to meet the victims in concern. But on the other hand, if you talk about the on-ground situation here, the civil hospital is just about 1.5 kilometers away from the crash site. So immediately when the flight crashed, all the injured as well as all the dead bodies were brought in here at this specific hospital as we speak. And continuous overnight there has been movements right here at the trauma center, at the postmortem ward, and even at the DNA center. Earlier we were at the DNA lab center, which has been built in one of the buildings here, where hundreds of relatives of the victims have come from across the country. They are here giving their DNA test samples because it will help authorities to identify the passengers in concern. Secondly, we also went to the post-mortem ward where more than 250 dead bodies that were recovered have been kept inside that specific post-mortem ward, and we could see the relatives coming in, getting emotional because they still do not know whether the patient is over there or whether the patient, the victim is somewhere else. So this is something, even 24 hours to the incident, we still do not have clarity on certain things. Firstly, what caused the accident, because that is something which the inquiry team is really doing as we speak.
Right.
Secondly, the total death number, because right now 265 is what the Ahmedabad police has stated, but it could go further is what they are predicting. And thirdly, the DNA test sample will take another 24 hours to complete, and later only then the dead bodies will be handed over to the concerned family members.
Indeed. That's of course true. Disha, this is a dual tragedy. There were passengers on board the flight. 241 of them have perished. One managed to survive. And then there were these doctors at the hostel on whom this plane fell. At this moment, has everyone within that hostel been accounted for? Tell us a bit about what's in fact the condition of the hostel on top of which this plane fell.
Well, absolutely. Earlier, for a couple of hours, we were there right at the crash site, where specifically right outside we saw there were 5 buildings of the hostel which were completely burnt. And the condition, the damage has been really extensive and significant. It took nearly 12 to 13 hours for the rescue team to conduct the rescue operations and remove most of and the maximum dead bodies from under the debris. And even as we speak, the debris removal work is underway. However, the forensic team and the other central agencies are there at the spot. They are trying to assess the extent to what damage has been done, and they are also collecting the evidences from the ground level, from the crash site. The location and the visuals that we have seen is something which is next to impossible, because the plane crashed in one of the hostel buildings, and it was a usual day for more than hundreds of resident doctors who were having their lunch. It was a lunch time, and little did they know that something like this could happen. And there have been casualties according to what the police has stated, but how many is something which is not confirmed. But 50 to 60 of them have managed to survive and they are currently here at the trauma center right behind me. They are getting the treatment, and the remaining resident doctors who were not present at the time of the shift and who managed to survive the incident, they have been shifted to the other buildings from the same campus. So let me show you. This is the huge civil hospital campus. It is not only spread across where I am, but it is about 3 to 4 kilometers huge area. And under this civil hospital, on the other end, there is the BJ Medical College Doctors Hostel where the incident took place. So this area also has a lot of other hostel facilities for the resident doctors. So for temporary, all of the affected resident doctors will be shifting to the other hostel facilities is what we understand. And on the ground level right now, the forensic team, the central agencies are working. They have also recovered a DVR is what we understand. One black box also has been recovered. So that will of course let us know what triggered the accident. This will take a while because they are also trying to figure out the next second black box as well.
Absolutely, indeed, Disha. Thank you very much indeed for joining us and getting us all those very comprehensive details of what's in fact been unfolding at the site of the crash. We'll of course come back to you as more details emerge in this story. For now though, we'll slip into a short break. More news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned to WION. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.